The shorter version of this is that if you can sleep at night knowing that everybody that's in your company is performing up to the same level that you would perform if you were sitting with them or instead of them, I think that's the biggest. The smallest definition of culture of ownership, where you don't have to think about what if they say something like that, or what if they misrepresent our company, or what if they're not doing their job perfectly. I guess that's the short answer. The long answer would be people that can absorb your values, your culture, your vision, your mission, and sort of your passion for growth and everything that you want to achieve. It could be anything, it could be non-profit, it could be profit, but as long as they understand it and they're able to project it and they really embody, through within themselves, within the business that you run, and they feel like it's their company. That's, I guess, where it's done.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we talk about ownership culture. What is ownership culture, why it matters, and what you can do to get there. Our special guest today is the co-founder of TekRevol. They were number 769 on the Inc. list, 829% in 3 years. We're talking with Abeer Raza. And when I had this conversation with him and we were talking about ownership culture, he's a young guy, but he gets it. He's building multiple companies. They are taking this business not just to the Inc. 5000, but beyond that. I really believe that they'll become a unicorn status company, but you'd have to stick around and see, because it's going to take a little bit of while for his strategies and plans to develop, as you say. But inside the conversation, we talk about his ownership culture, what it really is, why it's important, and why it matters to you. The short of it is culture is the strong foundation at which a company is built. Peter Drucker once said that culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's true. It really is something that I want you to really think about, why culture matters so much. It's because you don't scale without the right people. The right people help you overcome challenges, help you navigate the new opportunities, and help you continue to move forward. If you don't have the right people, you'll struggle. And if you don't have the right leadership, you will struggle as well. So in today's conversation with Abeer, we talk about the ownership culture. My job is to help you be the best leader you can be. My job is to help you see what you don't already see. If you are curious about leadership coaching or leadership development for those young leaders inside your second and third levels within the company, I'd love to talk to you about what's going on in your company and see if there's a fit for what we offer. I share this with you now. You can get free content on my website, or you can just go right to the front of the line and schedule a call with me. Go to genehammett.com and schedule your call right now. Inside that call, I will walk you through a framework called a performance leadership audit, where you will get really clear understanding of where you stand. All you have to do is fill out the form, and it's absolutely free. If you have a team, you want them to take more ownership, you want to have stronger leadership, just go to there right now. Now, here's the interview with Abeer. Abeer, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am fantastic. We are going to dive into an incredible conversation around culture and ownership. Before we do that, I'd love for you to take us and share a little bit about your company, TekRevol.
Yeah, so we build technology solutions for enterprise clients, small business and medium business, as well as ourselves. Mostly these are applications or portals or solutions or integrations that can help them scale their business, or sort of start new revenue streams, or cut costs, or be more efficient, especially during these times. So, yeah.
What do you see for your industry next? Because I know technology is changing pretty quick, and digital transformation. What are the things on the horizon that we should know about?
So I think the way technology is changing, AI is going to be a big contributor towards how products are built. I see a lot of development work being sort of handed off to machines that can sort of automate these things and sort of make things more possible. I think creativity would be the only sort of job that would be required in optimizing different components from a strategic perspective. So whether it's design. I mean, even on the design side, we've seen sort of AI take on that role by creating images and things like that, and videos even. So it's going to be an interesting perspective where human beings are just going to be needed to kind of merge things or see long term or sort of how things fit together. But I feel like even that's going to become less and less. So I guess in a way, there's definitely going to be a huge change in the space.
Well, I want to point out something. It's right over your shoulder. We can't see it, but you were number 769 on the Inc. list this past year. What happened?
I think it's over here somewhere.
Yeah. What happened when you got that? I mean, did you guys celebrate as a team, or was it kind of lackluster? What was the overall feeling of getting that high in the list?
Is it really that high? There's about 768 companies above us, so I wouldn't say it's really that high.
Well, it's pretty impressive, right? It's a 3-year growth rate, 829%. Right. Most companies are probably averaging 10 to 15% a year, and you guys grew over a 3-year period, 829%. I think that's impressive. Not so for you?
So for me, it was more like a self-fulfilling prophecy, in the sense that I remember like I used to work for this company, consulting firm in Houston, and they won Inc. 5000 while I was still there, and it was a huge deal. And I was like, I was super impressed to be part of a company that was Inc. 5000. Put that in my calendar and stuff.
Yeah.
And it was exciting, and I kept on telling people that we were Inc. 5000 and stuff. And then a part of me, like small voice inside my head, was like, could I do this myself? Like, is it possible? And then eventually when I, quit working for them and started my own business, that was the first thing that I put together with my partner. Like, we have to be Inc. 5000. And I mean, the impressive part isn't that we have had 800%, growth plus in 3 years. The impressive part is that we started in Pakistan. And with one person with $1,000 worth of investment 5 years ago. And that's when we set the target to reaching 5,000. And this was the first year that we could possibly, we tried last year as well, but they were like, you have to have 3 years tax returns, which we didn't have because it had only been 5 years. So this year I was like inching towards submitting our a company for it. And I was like, okay, now I can finally submit it because we have 3 years tax return. So go for it. And then when the news came, I was like, I just gave out a sigh of relief. And I was like, we really made. And then Inc. people told us that we had 800% growth. I did not know that we had 800% growth 3 years. So yeah, I'm not one for crunching numbers or things like that. I just want to kind of keep growing. So for us, it was just a milestone. And now it's Fortune 500. So on to the next one.
Well, that's a big milestone to be able to get. It's a huge jump. Hopefully you'll be able to make that transition. I want to go back to, we've done a lot of research on your company and what you guys are up to, but you have said one reason why you guys are performing at the level you perform at is because of your culture of ownership. What is a culture of ownership to you?
I mean, the shorter version of this is that if you can sleep at night knowing that everybody that's in your company is performing up to the same level that you would perform if you were sitting with them or instead of them, I think that's the biggest. The smallest definition of culture of ownership, where you don't have to think about what if they say something like that, or what if they misrepresent our company, or what if they're not doing their job perfectly. I mean, yeah, I guess that's the short answer. The long answer would be people that can absorb your values, your culture, your vision, your mission, and sort of your passion for growth and everything that you want to achieve. It could be anything, it could be nonprofit, it could be profit, but as long as they understand it and they're able to project it and they really embody, through within themselves, within the business that you run, and they feel like it's part of it's their company. That's, I guess, where it's done.
Now, Abeer just talked about he wants his employees to say it's their company. What he's really saying here is he wants people to feel like owners. When they feel like owners, they overcome the challenges. They will be loyal. They will work hard. But the problem is we don't have that much going around. People show up, they do their work, they go home. They get paid for it. They're trading time for money. Well, ownership is very different. It's a feeling inside. It's something that happens inside the person. They feel connected to the work. They feel connected to the results. They feel connected to the process. They feel connected to the clients. All of these things, the goals. you want to make sure you're inspiring ownership. My hope is that you will continue to do that. I've mapped out 6 different dials around this. If you're curious, just reach out to me. I can send you the data, or we can have a conversation and see how it fits exactly within your company. Back to Abeer. I like the long definition better. It gives me a little bit more to understand of this. We've talked a lot on the podcast about a culture of ownership. I have in my notes here, you have an intrinsic culture of ownership. Why do you put the word intrinsic in there to make sure it's really deliberate about the inside, I guess?
So I think for one of our parts of our vision statement is individualistic collectivism. And that's the sort of a term that I coined. I don't think it actually means anything. I just kind of put together 2 words like individualistic and collectivist. I thought of this idea when I was doing my master's. And the idea behind it was that, you hear a lot about having like a socialist approach or a communist approach where you work as a collective. And then there's this capitalist approach where you just do everything for yourself and hope it furthers, in general, everybody sort of, has a positive effect from it. So how about we combine both of them, where we say that, okay, in order for us to help ourselves, we need to first help the community and sort of intrinsically have that mindset that that's going to help us in return. Obviously, that doesn't really work out all the time, but in some cases where it does work out, it's beautiful. And that's where it kind of stems from. Where when I say intrinsic, culture of ownership, it's more so that if you're helping a client, we don't help them from a perspective that they would pay us eventually, or we should charge for it or whatever. We should do it because we want to actually put out the best thing, and we should do it because we feel like that's our product. Or if you're doing something for ourselves, or we're creating something, it should be done from a perspective that this is the best that we could come up with, because that's the level we judge ourselves on. So that's one component. There's others as well. I'm sure we can cover that later.
Well, I love the fact that you talk about ownership and you've tied it to values. I have a lot of conversations on the podcast with my clients as an executive coach about the importance of values. Did you guys start with a clear set of values when you began the company, or did you actually develop them further into launching?
I mentioned I used to work for a consulting firm. So the first thing that I did was consult ourselves, which is where I created a whole SDP and everything else when we were 3 months into the business, where we had I think about $500 in revenue. And, there wasn't much happening, but I just knew that I wanted to do something big. And I knew that in order for us to do something big, we have to have the right foundation. And foundation comes from the values that you have. So, we set our values right up front because we understood that even though it was me and my partner working and there was nobody else, we hired one guy 3 or 4 months down the road. It was very, very critical that, we have these values that we hold ourselves accountable for. And then the people that come on board as well, we teach them first. So when we have onboarding now, we discuss values first, and we try to understand what their values are and how we can merge it with the firm. And then we have different things within our company where we have social, sessions that we have where we would go out and sort of help people in different, parts of our culture and sort of community. And we would have our employees help them as well so that they can get that feeling that you get when you actually, give back.
Now, Abeer just talked about in the onboarding process, they go over the values. Well, we just onboarded a new employee here to our sales team. Ashlyn, thank you for being a great part of the team. But we just spent a full hour going over the values of the company and really talked about how they fit into the work we do. I wanted to start this off really strong with her because I wanted her to have a clear understanding of this. And I want your employees to have a clear understanding of your values. So one step that we did beyond this was I asked her to take the values based on the conversation we had on the very first day of work and map out how they apply in her life in a real way. Put a couple of sentences to it so that I'm really clear that she gets what they mean. Here's the reason why we do that, because we don't want these things just to be something we talked about once. We want it to be ingrained into how they operate, how they make decisions, how they get work done, how they overcome the challenges in front of them. You want to make sure that you do that too. Use onboarding really well. Use these tricks if you want to, but they're there for you if you want to get people to live by the values. Back to Abeer. Abeer, I want to switch the direction where we're going here. We've been talking about the culture here of ownership. I want to talk about you and your style of leadership. How would you frame in your style of leadership? Is there words you could put to it in a simple sentence?
Chaotic.
Chaotic? Okay, tell me more about that.
That's actually the second part of our vision statement, which is structured chaos. My partner is the structure, I'm the chaos. Because we have like multiple offices, these days, for the past few years, my team has been less stressed because I get to shift my chaos in different areas of the world. So they get like not the, best of it. But I think it has to do, I mean, I recently got diagnosed with ADHD and sort of like other aspects of, issues that I currently have. But essentially, I like the excitement and the energy and sort of keeping things going and pushing forward and working, burning the midnight oil and all those things. So for me, it has to keep changing. It has to keep evolving. It has to be in a constant state of flux. So if everything is working smooth and everything is working in a very structured way, then I just kind of lose it. So I have to kind of break it down again to make it anew. So that's my type of leadership, I guess. It changes things. It gets us the 800% growth that we had and more. But yeah, I don't like it when things are stagnating. So yeah, that's why I approach, I guess.
Now, you mentioned your co-founder, and I know you've shared the name before, but what is his name? Awesome. So he brings structure to this. Does he balance you and you guys have healthy debates about structure versus chaos? Or does it work in a different way?
All the time. It's more like yin and yang. So he rubs off on me, I rub off on him in terms of where things work. But honestly, like I've had several businesses before this that, sort of died in a blaze of glory. And I keep joking with him that this would happen like if he leaves for like a month. That's exactly what would happen with this business. Or like on his part, we'd be stuck in one point if you weren't here. So, it is that way. Like you have to have the perfect. I mean, we joke about it. Like I call him my work wife. So yeah, so always like that.
So I've got to ask you, I think a lot of businesses don't understand healthy debate. I'm envisioning you guys actually going toe to toe at times because you believe one way, he believes structure, you believe chaos, but then you're able to find, I wouldn't say middle ground. You can really reframe this any way you want to, but you find the best way forward given whatever's going on, but you do it in a way that's healthy, that still keeps trust intact. Is that fair to say?
So I think the underlying component to our relationship is that sense of respect for each other, that he knows what he's doing and I know what I'm doing. Without that, it just wouldn't work. If I would blindly do whatever he wants to do and he would do the same thing with me, and we would keep our back, for whatever in any situation. I think that's what keeps it going. He questions a lot of my judgments, and even if he doesn't, there's a voice inside me that keeps questioning what I do. And then later on, I would tell him that, hey, you said this, and I'm like, this is why I did it. And he's like, no, I didn't say that. So it's almost like, we're kind of like questioning each other at every step. So it kind of allows us that sort of breadth of experience where, we're still kind of moving forward, but we're making sure that, we have a firm foundation to build from. But yeah, it definitely is in middle ground. Sometimes I have to give way. Sometimes he has to give way. And I wouldn't say that either of us are right or wrong all the time. But as I said, that we respect each other's decision, and that's how we were able to make it work.
I want to go back to the chaos thing. I do believe it probably has played a contributing factor to the success of the company and the growth that you have. But it could probably also get in the way. Have you done the work to realize what gets in the way when you look for, you really have this chaotic style of leadership?
That's a very difficult question to answer. I think there's two parts to this to answering this question. And most of them have to do with the mistakes that we've made. The first part of that at least is where, because like at the stage that we're at, we're self-funded, as I said, started with $1,000, 5 years growth, and now we have like 250 people in our team. There have been several mistakes that have burned through a lot of capital that we could have consumed elsewhere to kind of grow as a business. A lot of pivots in a lot of different directions that we shouldn't have gone into, which we realized at a later stage that it was just just recently we set up an office in Ukraine right before the Russian war. And even though I couldn't have predicted that, it's just that it was a huge sort of misstep on our part. Again, not predictable, but it's just that, just to kind of expand and sort of, I mean, Ukraine has some of the best developers. So my, perception there was like, we have that done. We could be the best development company in the world. So yeah, I mean, I think the mistakes part definitely could do without, but then wouldn't have had the learning at this stage. And on the other end, I think in terms of like thinking through on making sure that we, are able to kind of take in the maximum out of one situation or get the right amount of opportunity. I would say no. At this stage, after 5 years into the company, we're starting to realize that we could be more efficient. We could be more, structured and sort of scale up a lot better if we were to kind of entrench ourselves more. So we're still going through that, and hopefully next year should have some results.
I appreciate you going back through some of the mistakes. I have not talked to anyone on the show who said I haven't made any. So you're in good company. Everyone basically says, where do I start? And I feel the same way. I've made a lot of mistakes. I wish I could go back and do them differently because we would have been able to overcome, but there was a lot of learning inside of that. Abeer, you've been talking about, culture and ownership and these things. Why do you think culture is so important to the success of a company?
So I think it was Ford who, I mean, he's quoted at least saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast or something along those lines. So it kind of stuck with me. My boss used to keep saying that as well. He was Accenture and stuff like that. So like, I'm sure he knew. I think like in terms of culture, I mean, you could have the best strategy and you can hire the best people, but if they don't share the same values and they're sort of not really equipped with the right framework in terms of doing things the way they should be done that reflect a certain image of the company that you're trying to create in the minds of the consumers or customers or whatever, then any one of them can actually sort of take it in a completely different direction and can destroy your company. Because like one client can leave a negative review about you, or one consumer can come back and say whatever. So we live in a very sort of democratized society where everything is kind of open. So yeah, I mean, if companies like Tesla and Twitter can be completely downshifted because of the culture that a person represents, I think we're a fairly small company compared to that. So one cultural flaw could actually like mean the death of the company pretty much.
Abeer, thank you so much for being here, being on the podcast, sharing your vision and wisdom for growth. Thank you.
It was a pleasure, Gene. Thank you.
Fantastic interview. I love this ownership culture and all of the things that we have been talking about. It is something I've talked about many, many times before. All of the research here that I have shared with you and what Abeer shares with you will help you be a stronger company. My hope is that you will take it to heart and you will learn from what he's saying or learn from what I'm saying, how important these things are. When you think of growth and you think of leadership, think of Growth Think Tank. As always, with courage. We'll see you next time.